This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network.
TalkSport. Powered by fans.
And welcome to a Wednesday week podcast. Hello from the other side special. My name's Charlie and I am joined by Joe Fairs, who is an Ipswich fan, and we are going to be digging into Ipswich's season a little bit, finding out a bit how things have been going for them, and ultimately looking ahead to Sheffield Wednesday, Ipswich clash on Saturday. Joe, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yep, looking forward to renewing rivalries this season.
Yes, obviously there was I don't know, a little rivalry from last season. It's so long ago I barely remember how it felt to be at the heady heights near the top of the table. Went all right for you guys, not bad last season.
Yeah, no, it's enjoyable. I think from when we drew with you at Portman Road after that game, we just sort of put the afterburners on and went into a different gear, and we haven't really been knocked out of it since, which has been quite enjoyable for the last 12 months effectively.
Gosh, yeah, it's come around quick, hasn't it? So obviously, you guys last season to where you are now, has it exceeded your expectations of how you thought things were going to go after promotion?
Yes, in a word, I thought we'd do all right. I thought we'd be up there sort of pushing for one of the sort of playoff positions, maybe trying to get towards that sort of 70, 75 points and maybe be able to get into the top six. But the fact we're already on sort of 78, we're keeping pace with sort of ridiculous sides above us, sort of at record-breaking levels, I think we've exceeded everyone's expectations by far already, just with where we are. But no, I thought we were on the up, but I didn't think we'd be this good at this level this quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, League One's a funny league, Championship's a funny league. Like you only have to look at what we're doing or not doing. And Plymouth as well, obviously, they were well up there with us too. And then they're having a kind of a slightly lower than middle at the moment. So yeah, I guess it's you mentioned about kind of the rip roaring other teams right at the top. How is it kind of competing against what you might call like the parachute payment teams? How are you finding that as a challenge?
It's incredibly difficult and frustrating because they win every week. So you look at the table, and if you don't win, as happened last week, we obviously lost at Cardiff last week, and you sort of go from there, and you just know that you're going to be further back than you were this week. Where sometimes when you're at the bottom of the league and you win games, but that's not been the case for you guys lately. I know you sort of win games, expect to move up the table, and aren't even doing so. But I guess I've got used to this, as last season was the same. I sort of looked, Ipswich won. How did Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth do? Oh yeah, they both won as well. And it feels much the same this season, as everyone's just on for ridiculous points totals, and the sort of 96 points you got to come third last season is probably going to be good enough for third again this season, which is incredible, really, that we've been caught in this race twice effectively, when probably the highest ever League One sort of third place finish, and it's likely to be the Championship again this year. So, but it's good to be in the mix, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, that's it. It's not many teams kind of have the success that they have in League One and then are straight back up there in the mix. And you know, it's not an ordinary championship table this time in a way, with sort of the exception of that very, very top, who obviously have kind of skyrocketed. Things are all over the place. And yeah, you mentioned like with us, like we'll win a game, we'll win another game, we'll win 4 or 5 on the bounce, but we're still stuck in exactly the same position. But there's nothing more frustrating, I guess, than having to think about what other teams are doing. But you know, you never know. Are you hopeful? Do you think you stand a good chance? You know, where you are, or is it just one stretch too far against the multi-millions and millions of pounds just above you?
I guess it's just that one game at a time attitude, really, for us at the moment. You look at the games ahead and sort of every game we can win, and the squad, because it is basically the same squad as last year, and the management team have got the experience of knowing how to have a run into the season. So they've got that experience, which maybe, I know Daniel Farke's got it at Leeds, but maybe the squad doesn't, and at Leicester the squad doesn't have that experience of getting over the line. And you just hope that that part of us gives us an advantage that closes the gap, that the effectively difference in talent and squad quality and depth and wages and every other metric that points to them, it helps us close that gap. And probably the same way last year when we looked at, everyone just seemed to, oh well, Plymouth are going to drop off soon and it'll be Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday that will keep going, but Plymouth never dropped off and they kept going. And it's just a hope. It's only, like I say, it's only 9 more games we've got to try and go, and if you can win 6 of them, you're going to be very, very close to it. So it's just trying to make sure you get your wins when you can.
That's it, isn't it? It's you've you can't help but look what everyone else is doing, but ultimately, like, the most you can do is win your own games and hopefully, keep on a good track. So, how was January for you guys? So you mentioned you've pretty much got the same squad. Like, did you swell your coffers at all in the transfer window?
Yeah, I guess the big issue we had is that I think it was the Boxing Day game, George Hurst, who was sort of our talismanic striker, got injured, and it left us with no real depth in that number 9 role. So it was a combination of sort of like Freddie Ladapo, Caden Jackson, Nathan Broadhead, all having goes there, and it just we had a poor run over the January window where I think we won sort of 2 games out of 9, but that was sort of Norwich, Leicester twice, Leeds. So it was a really tough run of fixtures, but we just stopped scoring as many goals as we had been, and we brought in Kiefer Moore as a replacement for George Hurst, and he's scored 6 goals already. And just him being in the team has meant that Nathan Broadhead started scoring again, Connor Chaplin started scoring again, and we've gone from scoring sort of 2 or 3 goals a game at the start of the season to scoring 0 or 1 goal a game for a few weeks. Now Kiefer Moore's back in, and we're back to scoring 2 or 3 goals every week. So he's made a massive difference in just giving us that focal point. And then there was a sort of couple of other signings, Jeremy Sarmiento, Lewis Travis also coming in, and I say that they've all seemed to have done well, and Ali Al Hamidi obviously as well, who's come in effectively as a backup to Kiefer Moore for the last few weeks, come in and looked really sharp. So we seem to have had a nice window sort of in the long term and the short term. So as happened with January last year, we've managed to sort of do really well in what was a really tough window. So yeah, the squad's in as good a shape as it possibly could be with regards to the sort of constraints of our budget and FFP and that, because
Yes.
I think we're in a position where we had the cash. If we wanted to spend more money, we could have done, but we just weren't able to because of the rules in place, which is galling when you see the sort of some of the signings. I know Leicester didn't get them over the line. They're trying to sign a £20 million midfielder, and
Honestly.
we're struggling to get a loan deal done for a striker.
It's another world, isn't it? Like they're playing with silly money, and they're competing on a level that other teams can't. But it's an old cliche, isn't it? But like goals win games, and if you haven't got that depth in the squad that are banging them in, then it's so much harder to get those results over the line. So, but yeah, it's some of the deals that you hear about going on at the higher end of the table, and you're thinking, that's worth more than our entire squad. Like, it's just unbelievable. Like and you only have to look at sort of how teams, when they do go up and when they're then competing against like established Premiership teams, the money's on another scale, isn't it? It's they're not trying to get a free transfer over. They're trying to they're gambling in the big bucks. So it does make it harder for us smaller clubs, us poorer clubs.
We'll get there one day.
We'll get there one day. That's it. I mean, Leicester still, even now, I guess they're still that shining example of a team that did it and then did it for long enough that they kind of got ingrained in that Premier League, business. So,
Now they're
but
sort of
yeah,
due a points deduction or something. There's talk of not. I don't think this season,
yeah,
but if they
no,
go back
no,
up, there'll be something going on there that they're the sort of sustainable side that finished in the top 8 3 times out of 4, won the FA Cup, won the
mm,
league, been in Europe a few times, have one bad season, get relegated, and then all of a sudden they are just totally screwed. Which I guess is what shows the difficulty in competing with the in the Premier League is effectively when you try and take that step from a side that main ambition is just making sure you stay up to trying to push. You just, I don't know, it's just everything's so difficult, isn't it? There.
it is. It is. And I think, like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I think it's what's interesting is, that points deduction potentially coming in for them, at the end, in next season, which of course is, like it's not ideal, but I think they'd probably rather be in the Prem shaking off a points deduction than, of course, getting a points deduction now at this
It
point
would
in the
be it would
season.
be great if they could lose like 12 points or
Wouldn't it?
something now. I'd be
Wouldn't
very
it?
happy with that.
Like, and even, I mean, obviously, I mean, for us languishing down at the bottom, it makes very little difference. But I mean, purely from like just from a championship point of view, like how interesting suddenly, like things suddenly, really would open up there. Because I mean, while everyone else has been kind of a bit like a Rubik's cube, and people are shifting and dropping, and so few teams are like exactly where they were at Christmas. Whereas like the very top of the table is pretty much not budged. So yeah, it'd be nice maybe if just they fancied shaking things up a bit, maybe just chuck them a cheeky little points deduction. But unfortunately, I can't see that happening. It's a real shame.
Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned about a recent loss, but I mean prior to that, results had been going pretty fantastic for you guys. Were you unbeaten in the previous 4 before that? I think
It's 6. Yeah, we'd won 6 in a row
6.
before that. Yeah, I think we'd sort of come off the poor run, then we'd drawn at the end of it, and then we'd just won sort of 6 on the bounce, and then we're winning until the 95th minute last week and managed to lose from that position, which is incredibly frustrating. But it's it's difficult to be too annoyed because we've done that to a lot of teams this year. We've generally, when there's been a late goal going in, when there's been pressure going on, when there's been a team that's getting that slice of luck to get over the line, it's generally been us. So you've got to accept the odd one going against. It's only the 5th game we've lost all season, so it is.
I mean, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? Like,
Mm,
and I think it's always hard, isn't it, when you to look back on like a fantastic streak when you're coming fresh off a loss, and every point counts at this point. But would you say that like things are going well on the pitch in general? Like you're liking the football that you're seeing, or is there anything that's really concerning you? Anything from that loss where you were like, oh my God, that's a massive issue that we're going to have to get rid of that in these last couple of games?
I think like, defensively we have let in a number of goals this year. We're probably sort of the leakiest team in the top of the table, but away from home, our defence is actually generally pretty good. It's at home where we tend to let in more goals. But I think it was just maybe just one game too far. We've had a lot of travelling in the last few weeks. We've been sort of 3 away games in a row, were Swansea, then Plymouth, then Cardiff. So it's just
It's a track.
back up and down the sort of M4, and it's just. I think there was a bit of illness in the camp. They were sort of mentioned, so maybe just being at the very end of the game after a sort of big run of games, sort of getting in that 90th minute, losing your heads a bit. One error compounds another error, and it was very unlike us that last few minutes because we're normally very very composed in seeing out games. And I think it's just one you just have to put down as one of those freak results and try and move on, try and bounce back with a win sort of Saturday, and then you go into the international break knowing you've had a sort of 7 wins in 8 going into that, and you sort of couldn't really have done any more over that period.
Definitely, definitely. And yeah, and I think, momentum is absolutely key, isn't it? And morale. And at this point when it's getting to crunch time and, international break on the horizon, you really want to kind of be whatever kind of energy you've got feeding into that international break. Hopefully it's a positive one. So speaking of Saturday, obviously it's a big one for both teams. All games are big ones at this point. What are your thoughts? Are you confident going in? I mean, you surely looking all the way, squinting all the way down at us from all the way up in third. You must be feeling pretty confident that little old Sheffield Wednesday aren't going to do much business.
I think it's if you'd have asked me a few weeks ago, then maybe I'd have been more confident. But I sort of have followed it enough to realise that you were dead and buried effectively in sort of November really, and then since Danny Rall's come in, it's been a real turnaround. And we're not playing the 23rd best team in the league on Saturday, even though you're 23rd in the table. We're probably playing the 9th or 10th best team in the league when you look at results over 6 games, 12 games, 18 games, whichever sort of way you slice it. It's not been you've sort of been a really good side, and to get back from where you were to where you are now is sort of shows a great job. But we've got to go into it with confidence. Ultimately, we are at home. We are a title chasing team, and we should be beating you. But I think there's definitely problems that can be caused. We tend to let in a few too many goals at home, and sort of Portman Road is a place to be for excitement. But even when you look at the recent games, the last game was 3-2. The game before that was 4-3, and it's been like that all season. We just letting goals, and that's going to catch us out at some point doing that. And hopefully, it's not this not this weekend. It does that. But no, I've been impressed with you since. I don't know, since that Huddersfield game, everything seemed to click. And I watched the game against Leeds on Friday night, and Leeds are probably the best team in the league when you look at how they play. But I thought in the first half it's a pretty even game, and sort of Ugbo up front seems to be causing everyone problems. And it is like I say, it's not a game we're looking at thinking, oh yeah, Sheffield Wednesday coming to town, they're second bottom, we'll just roll them over, because it isn't like that anymore. And even when it was like that, we played Rotherham, who they should be rolled over, and it took a 96-minute winner to beat them. So
it's a crazy league, isn't it? It's a crazy league. I mean, we've sort of said like our most 2 recent losses being against Leicester and Leeds. You go, well, yeah, on paper, fair enough. And I think the big thing with Leeds, we fell apart after that first goal went in kind of the dying seconds. I think us being able to hold them to a draw till like the end of that first half, you know, the atmosphere was amazing. And then I think we really did fall apart. But by rights, again, we should have really got battered by both of them. It could have been a cricket score. It almost probably should have been a cricket score if you look at where we're at in the table. So yeah, I guess that's our confidence. If confidence is probably too strong. Our cautious optimism going into Saturday is maybe we're not 23rd. You know, we're not. We might be on paper, but maybe not in reality. And you mentioned Ugbo. Who should we be looking out for then? Who's going to be your thorn in our side, as it were?
Well, Kiefer Moore is just the big can't miss him, the big 6'6" guy up front that seems to score in most games, and he's a really good player. But yeah, there's a sort of a lot of quality behind him, sort of Nathan Broadhead, Kaplan. But it's the same guys that it was last season. Leif Davis down the left, who gets up and down and creates goals, and generally sort of Sam Morsey in the central midfield just runs the show. Generally, most games is really, really important to us, and if we don't have him, we really struggle. But yes, it's still the same. The League One All-Stars of Nathan Broadhead, Connor Chaplin, Wes Burns, Leif Davis, the players that got us up last year, are the ones who are still doing it for us this year. They've all stepped up. Amari Hutchinson's been excellent. He's a loanee from Chelsea, and he's really sort of pushing for a start. I think he was the Championship Player of the Month last month, and scored. He didn't score the last game, but the last 3 games at Portman Road, he scored in the sort of 90th minute in all those games. He's been a player that's really, really pushing. But yeah, no, they are. It is still the same guys as last time.
Brilliant. Any you mentioned obviously, you know, like with Roll, and like, yeah, perhaps we are on the up, or at least there's a little bit of magic about it. Can we pull off another ridiculous sort of season end madness like we sort of did last season? But in terms of players, like, is there anyone we always end up talking about Bannon. Teams always end up saying, oh, Bannon, yeah, he's the one. But like, you know, is there anyone that you've seen bits of that you think, oh, he's going to be the one to watch?
That's interesting, because Marvin Johnson, isn't it? Because he was linked with us in the January window, and I think we'd have quite liked to have taken him, but I don't think it worked out. And I guess that was probably all part of the fact that you were still looking dead and buried at that point, and it would have taken a ridiculous run to get out of it. But you've had that ridiculous run now, so it was the right thing to keep him. He's a player that gets up and down and has a good delivery on him, which is sort of always important at this level. But yeah, Ugbo seems to be the main threat, because obviously when someone puts the ball into the goal, it's the hardest thing to do, and sort of coming from there, that's the difference between points or not. And is it Gassana, as he seems to be?
Gassama, yeah, he's some great play there. I think we've finally seemed to get a bit of an idea of where we were going wrong, which was not getting in the box, not smashing it in the back of the net. And there's little nice bits that are starting to emerge. Hopefully, not not
Yeah,
too
and
late
I'd like to see
in the
Barry
game.
Bannon have one of his League One games where he tries to do absolutely everything all game, because I think that sometimes sort of slowed things down and maybe helped him. But he doesn't seem as involved as he was last year. He seems to be sort of taking a more of a normal role in the team, where it'd be
Yeah,
nice for him to try and take
yeah.
his sort of put his underpants over the top of his shorts and try and be the hero again this year, because I don't think it suited him at times last year. It was a bit too much. So
That's it. He's I mean, obviously, he's a cult hero, as close as we've perhaps got to one nowadays for those that like a bit of hero worship like me. But yeah, I've got to say, like, he's so consistent that you forget how consistent he is when he's not like scoring worldies from like a million yards out. And I think we miss him when he's not in the squad. Like the few times he went off at half time. Did he go off half time against Leeds? No, we went off half time against Plymouth earlier in the week. And it was like, even then, as much as like we were still on top and comfortably on top, there's always that bit where you're like, oh, we've not got Bannon. Where's that magic going to come from in midfield? Oh God, kind of thing. So I think he probably still poses a bit of a threat, but is he slowing down? Maybe he's slowing down that little bit. I don't know, but he can't run the game forever. And I guess hopefully we've got those players like you mentioned, like Johnson. Since he was dead and buried and seemed to be completely frozen out, has come back with a vengeance. So hopefully he'll not be looking longingly over at you guys and wishing things could have been different. So yeah, score prediction then. What do you reckon?
well, I'm going to have to go for a win, because I don't know. Where's the fun in football if you don't think you're going to win every
Well,
game? So
exactly. Don't bet against your own team.
I'll go for a 3-1 win.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. 3-1 win. I think my optimistic prediction is that we could maybe get some kind of point. Probably, if we're going to get a point, it's going to be 0-0. That you did mention, kind of you guys conceding at home a bit. So maybe if we were lucky, something like a 1-1. I think more realistically, I think you're going to do us. But hopefully, a bit like we've sort of seen with Leeds and Leicester, it's not going to be an absolute annihilation and decimate our goal difference even more than it already is. But yeah, we'll just have to see how last year's Titans of League One go on. Back together again for the final clash of the season together. So, but yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fantastic to chat. And is there anything you want to plug? What's going on the old Ipswich side of socials?
Yeah, just the podcast is at Blue Monday ITFC on X, formerly known as Twitter. Have to say that properly,
Yes,
don't I? I think that's the first time I've ever said that properly.
No
And then
one ever says it.
yeah, Blue Monday ITFC.co.uk has our link tree, I think, are the technical terms.
Awesome.
I'm not normally the one putting the plugs out here. I'm normally listening to the host do it, so I'm having to step onto unnatural ground here and do this. But yeah, there'll be a pre-match show being done Thursday night, which will be live 8 o'clock. So if there's any for Wednesday fans that want to get in a chat on that'd be good. And then we'll review the game on Sunday, and hopefully you guys won't want to be coming to bombard that chat, because you'll be sitting there licking your wounds afterwards rather than listening to it. But generally, if we have a poorer result, a lot of the opposition's teams fans do pop up in that to come and see what we like to say about them. And we'd like to think we're a pretty fair podcast and well researched and listened to, and it's not just oh, they've turned up and done this. We like I say, we know we're going into this game against a good side, and but probably on the flip side, this probably isn't a game that's got a big red circle around on the fixture list saying we need to get something from this game for you guys. There's probably more in the last 8 games where you do that. But no, I think it'll be a really good game. 2 really interesting coaches who have sort of learned the hard way coming up from sort of the background in coaching, a number of years service, and I'm sure they'll have some plans for each other. I'm sure after 20 minutes there'll be a player from one team who sits down on the floor with an injury, so that the rest of the team can go and have a team talk to go and pick up onto the little tweaks that they've got in place to try and get things changed there. But no, I'm looking forward to a really interesting game, and hopefully 3 points.
There we go. And from the Wednesday week, you can find all our socials hopefully linked very nicely at the bottom. You can find us on X. It does sound wrong. It's Twitter, but it isn't. It's X. On Facebook, on YouTube, we're on Twitch, and we're on TikTok. Come and check out. We've got loads of good bits and bobs going on, and our regular podcast will be back as always on Monday. So yeah, looking ahead to Saturday then. So hopefully it will go our way. Hopefully it'll go Joe's, depending on which side of the fence you are when you're watching this. And thank you very much for listening to us. I've been Charlie. Thank you very much. Goodbye.